Traders, how you doing? Marcello, founder of the Day Trading Academy.
Co-founder, Speed Up Trader.
If you guys didn't know, today, well, first of all, let me show you. I don't know if you guys have seen what a Model X Tesla looks like with the doors, but it's pretty ridiculous. Look at that. So what I'm doing today is this thing is amazing. Musk is the man. So today, what I'm doing is I'm showing you guys. We have, if you guys don't know, we actually fund traders. And you guys can actually, instead of trading your own accounts, you can trade a funded account that'll help you with trading live and developing your psychology. Trading View ready, so I figured we'd do it here in the Tesla. Because, you know, what other outlandish way can I convince you guys to learn how to trade? Log it in. You guys can see Speed up there in the corner. And now it's loading the charts. So if any of you guys are trading and making, look at that. If you guys are trading and making money, I would highly recommend looking into a Tesla because you can now trade and drive. How about that? And it's free. There's all the options. You select Trading View there at the bottom. Ridiculous. So, we're going to get to the weekly recap. So you saw that Trading View is available now on Teslas as well. Monday we had the market surge quite a bit due to the fact that we had the turnaround in the job growth, which means technically that we should have a speedier rebound in quarter 3 or quarter 4. If you guys have heard me talk before, I don't think we're going to get a V recovery. I think it's going to be more like a W, where we're going to have everything start to open and things are going to start working. We're going to have a little bit of a boom, but then we're going to have a bunch of layoffs. Or normally, you know, I'll give you the perfect example. United said that they only needed 12,000 of their employees of, I think, the 25,000 that they have. 2,000, excuse me. So either way, if I get those numbers exactly wrong, I can't remember exactly the article. The point is that once things start to recover, we're going to have a lot of restaurants that are coming back, which is a big percentage of the workforce. And so that's why I think we're going to have another little bit of a dip down, and then we'll finally have a bit of a recovery, which will most likely be sometime next year after the election. Tuesday, markets were mixed. We had people piling into the high tech. U.S. consumer, there's a bit of worry in terms of the U.S. consumer remains subdued. Remember that the consumer spending, whenever that number comes out, if you hear them talking about that in the news, that's the single most important number, for one of the most important numbers of the economy, because 70 of the economy is actually consumer spending. So people are saving a lot of money. If people are paying off their debt, they're not going out and spending it. That technically, how our economy is constructed is not good for the economy, because then, you know, 70% of the economy, people aren't spending their numbers. So that number is incredibly important. The NASDAQ did touch 10,000 on Tuesday. Wednesday, it opened above 10,000 for the first time. That's a record high for the NASDAQ. On Thursday, we had a plunge as investors started to fear about the coronavirus second wave, because obviously, as the media has pointed out, we should all stay home. It's really dangerous, but it's okay to go out and protest. Then it's okay. You don't have to worry about the coronavirus. That, to me, and even the numbers have showed that it really doesn't make sense for us to close out our entire economy when, you know, 99.99% of the people who get the coronavirus, outside of older people or people with a compromised immune system, should be the ones that are quarantined, not everybody. Other than that, most of the markets went down by about 5%, over 5% on Thursday. On Friday, we had a bit higher movement as well, over 1%. Investors started looking for gains. Essentially, what's happening now after the huge collapse that we had in March, everybody now is just buying the dip, right? Just market comes down, you just buy the dip, and it just is supposed to go up. But again, be very careful if you guys are going to invest in the market or trade. I think it's super obvious you can make a lot of money in the stock market, but I think most people don't tell you that if you don't know what you're doing, you can definitely lose a lot of money as well. So I don't want any of you guys to lose your money. One important thing as well in the trading space is make sure you leave a like here on the video. If you're listening to the podcast, go ahead and head over to YouTube if you want to. Hit the like there on the button. It's great for the YouTube algorithm. U.S. stocks are far lower this week. Dow was down 5.87%. It's still down over 10% for the year. The S&P 500 is down over 5% for the week, down still close to 9% for the year. And the NASDAQ is down 2.34% for the week, up 6.87% for the year. Overseas market news, they mostly followed the same pattern as the U.S. markets. In Europe, mostly lower. The DAX was the biggest loser at 7.84%. The Latin American markets, my dear and loved Colombia, was the biggest loser at 5.24%. In Africa and the Middle East, South Africa was at a negative 2.01%, while Egypt was positive 1.98%. And in Asia, mostly lower, with Thailand being a negative 3.84%. In Bitcoin and cryptocurrency news, the biggest securities regulator from Canada, said that the reason that they had that big collapse in the Canadian cryptocurrency trading platform Quadriga CX was due to a Ponzi scheme operated by the founder Gerald Cotton, who suddenly died in December of 2018. And this is something that I want to caution you of, right? If you want to go and invest in cryptos, go and invest in cryptos if that's what you want to do. But due to the fact that they aren't regulated, literally, there's no regulation for them or how they should work. They're starting to come out some things, but it's not like stocks or futures, right? You're not going to have a trading platform just go bust in futures, for example, because there's actually regulation. It's one of the things that I've always told you guys about, to be very, very careful, because obviously, yeah, you can make money in crypto, buy low, sell high, whatever you want to do, but you're running into a little bit of risk because these kinds of things can happen. And one of the things for me that was the biggest flag was that, not that it collapsed, because, that happens not a lot in cryptos, but it happens. But it happened in Canada, not in, Pakistan or Nigeria, in Canada. And nobody got their money back, by the way. Now, we did have the halving about 4 weeks ago that, remember, if you guys aren't big in the cryptocurrency space, essentially means that the rate at which new Bitcoins are being issued is reduced. And a lot of analysts were talking about how it was supposed to go higher, and it's still below 10,000, 9,442.85 to be exact. It went down about 1.53% for the week. Finance and banking news, Fed officials are forecasting an unemployment rate of above 9% for the rest of the year. This year, 2020, the economy is shrinking by over 6%. And they're also saying, remember, they aren't saying this, but I'm having you guys remember before the coronavirus hit, we actually had unemployment at a 50-year low at 3.5%. It spiked to 14.7% in April. After the quarantine and the ordered closures by the government, it went up to that amount. And then after that, in May last month, it went down to 13.3%. The U.S. Fed has left interest rates unchanged on Wednesday, and they're committing to maintaining an unprecedented amount of stimulus. Quote, saying, until it has weathered recent events, the economy, they're not expecting any interest rate hikes in 2020 or 21. In addition to that, 2022, they're saying, and they're still not open to negative rates. We'll see how not open they are to that if things don't get as well as they want them to get. The financial markets are starting to reprice as well a euro surge of as much as 6% versus the US dollar of about 120 as well by the end of 2020. And in commodities, the oil has climbed up to $40 as OPEC Plus has decided to continue their rate cut. They also said that Nigeria and Iraq are going to be making up for their backlog of reductions over the next 3 months. And China now is starting to increase the amount of oil imports. If you guys don't remember, the United States used to be the biggest importer of oil in the world. That has now changed. China has surpassed the U.S. China is now the biggest importer of oil in the world, and now they're importing even more oil. So they're going to new records as well. Other than that, oil is ending 6 weeks of consecutive gains. It went down 9.07% this week, went down 40.27% for the year still. International, which is called Brent, is down 16.65% for the week, and it's still down over 40% for the year. There's a sharp fall in gold prices this week that have taken some investors by surprise, but analysts did expect it due to the fact that economists were expecting a recovery in the economy after the lockdown. Gold unlikely to drop a lot. They don't expect it to drop sharply due to the fact that we do have a lot of uncertain things that are happening. We have a weak U.S. dollar, the increasing U.S. and China trade tensions. If that continues to go up again, obviously the global economy is not going to do well. The two biggest economy in the world, fighting with each other. And easy monetary policies. Government's printing money, they're taking on more debt, they're doing more stimulus, and obviously that devalues or at least puts selling pressure on some of these currencies. Gold futures headed for its biggest gain in over a month after the Fed said that it was going to hold rates near zero after a couple of years. And also they're going to maintain their stimulus. I mean, if you guys don't know what's happening, and it's on both sides, right? Whenever I try to do these videos, I always make sure that I'm factual and I'm not political. I think most of us are tired of all this political stuff in the States. So it doesn't matter if you're left or right. If you hate Obama, love Obama, hate Trump, love Trump, doesn't matter. But if you really see what's happening, ever since Clinton, let's say, he had a surplus, but had a Republican Congress, Bush, the debt is literally just begin to start skyrocketing. Obama added more debt than any other president in history combined. And now Trump is adding even more than that. The king of debt, right? So both sides of the aisle are bringing us down, and we can't continue to issue more debt because we have to pay it back at some point. And the reason why the U.S. can live the way it does is because we have the reserve currency, which means that everybody needs our dollars for now until they change the way things work or they develop their own techniques or people rely on another currency. So things are not headed in a good direction. I've talked to you guys before. This year, I think we're going to have a third thing. Things always come in threes. We had the coronavirus. We had the riots. I still think we're going to have one more thing at the end of the year. And the next big crisis, which will be even bigger than this one, is going to be right around 2026. I would say, with a margin of error of about 2 years, between about 24 to about 28 in that time frame. Precious metals are higher for the week. Gold is up 2.72% at $17.31, and silver went up 0.51% to $17.59. In political news, 9 of the 12 members of the Minneapolis City Council they voted to end the city police. The member Jeremiah Ellison promised council will dismantle the police. He's part of the council in the city. The mayor doesn't support the motion. One of the things I think is a little bit ironic is that the council can vote for it, but then the mayor gets blamed for it. So the council can vote for it, but then if the mayor doesn't do anything, if the mayor agrees to it, the council members aren't going to get blamed. It's the mayor. And that might be one of the reasons why he's not in agreement with that. If the city does abolish the police, the state of Minnesota can stop that from happening too, by the way. The mayor of Seattle is stating that it would be unconstitutional for Trump to send in the military to the new autonomous zone that they have there. Trump is saying that he may classify it as an insurrection, which means open resistance, quote, I got this from Google, open resistance against the orders of an established authority to be able to go ahead and do and control the area. If you guys don't know, there's a 6-block radius now in the middle of Seattle where there's no police. It's completely autonomous, and there's a local rapper that's controlling the area with armed guns. UAE, United Arab Emirates, if you guys don't know where that is, it's where Dubai is, saying they wrote an article in Israel's top newspaper saying that if they occupy the West Bank, that normalizing relations with the Arab world is going to become much more difficult, and they cannot expect that. And Israel officials just, they didn't care about that article at all, what they were saying. The UK has abandoned a plan to introduce full border checks with the EU starting in 2021, January 1st. Obviously, due to the situation with the coronavirus pandemic and the economic hit they have taken. In economic news, German industrial output has had its steepest decline since April. Remember, German engineering, right? This is the economy of Germany, the fourth largest in the world, is definitely relying on industrial output. It actually plunged 17.9% for the month. Central bank is feeling the worst of they're saying that the worst is actually now over for the economic crisis. They're expecting a contraction of 6.3% for the year. And that includes the stimulus that they made, which is $146.5 billion for the German economy. Economists are also declaring that the U.S. is in a recession. If you guys remember, I believe I mentioned that in May. Not that I know anything better, but we officially had the numbers from the first quarter, and obviously the second quarter with the quarantine and everybody sitting at home was going to collapse. It officially ended the longest expansion in history, going back to 1854. It was 128 months long, breaking a record of 120 months, which was set between March 91 from March 2001 and the dot-com boom. And in the US, the first week of June had over 1.5 million new claims for unemployment insurance. The last 12 weeks, we've had 44 million layoffs, and that continues the jobless claim numbers of 20.9 million, which ended at the end of May. UK's biggest firms are cutting tens of thousands of jobs in an effort to reduce costs, as they made an agreement with the government. The government's going to cover 80% of the people's salaries. We have companies like, I had it here, I just lost my notes. Got it. BP, 15% of its workforce. Mulberry getting rid of 25% of its workforce. If you guys don't know Mulberry, it's like Louis Vuitton or Coach. It's a luxury goods maker. British Airways getting rid of 12,000 of their workforce, and Rolls-Royce 9,000. So a lot of people being laid off in the UK. In addition to that, the UK's economy is expected to contract by 20.4% in April from March, when it shrank near 6%. In addition to that, it was 24.5% smaller than the economy of April 2019. Looks like they're saying that might be a bottom as well. The Eurozone industrial output fell by the most on record as well. And the OECD is stating that the global economic recovery is going to have long-lasting effects. The US GDP, they're expecting to contract by 7.3% for the year, 8.5% if we have the second outbreak. And in corporate news, we have a lot of the tech companies hitting all-time highs: Microsoft, Apple, Tesla, and Amazon as well. Apple reached a new all-time high at about 355, just under that. For the year, went up 18.88%, whereas for March, since March, the huge crash that we had, it actually went up by close to 41%. Amazon reached a new all-time high. They got to $1.32 trillion in market valuation. Apple becomes the first company to have $1.5 trillion in capitalization as well. And Tesla went up to $1,000 for the first time, that fancy little car that you saw there in the beginning. Tesla, they announced, he said that he was going to go all in when it comes to volume production of the Semi, and that literally caused the stock to continue to go up. He actually said on Twitter, I believe it was, "It's time to go all out," said Musk. Other than that, if one of the things that's interesting, if Tesla goes up another 15%, their market cap is going to be bigger than Toyota, which is the largest car company in the world. Toyota every year making a profit for the most part, right? They have some years they lose money. Tesla losing money every year. Most valuable car company in the world. Trade news. U.S. is overtaking Europe as China's biggest pork supplier for the first 4 months of 2020. They imported just over 254,000 tons of pork from the U.S. And the U.K. is also agreeing to a new timetable for the negotiations with the EU in July to be able to strike a new deal for the free trade agreement, due to the fact that obviously nobody's doing well at this point. In technology, China-based Contemporary Amperex Technology Co. is saying that they've developed a new battery that can actually last from 16 years, or about 1.24 million miles. Currently, batteries, they only have 150,000 warranty for the battery, which is about 8 years or so. And they're actually the company that makes the batteries for Tesla and Volkswagen as well. A day after IBM said it's going to exit its facial recognition business, Amazon is going to stop allowing police to use their facial recognition system for a year, saying that, quote, "We hope the 1-year moratorium might give Congress enough time to implement appropriate rules, and we stand ready to help if requested," end quote. In investment news, U.S. retailers hit hard by the recession and also the coronavirus. According to a company called Coresight Research, they're saying that up to 25,000 retail stores are expected to permanently close this year, which is going to break the record of last year of about 9,302. And so far in 2020, we've had 4,000 stores that are set to permanently close. And also the government of Hong Kong has agreed to add to a consortium of a bailout for Cathay Pacific, which is their airline from Hong Kong. And they're going to take a percentage minority stake in the company. And they took 74 million passengers in 2018 alone. Grubhub, the delivery food company, is deciding to merge with Takeaway.com, JustEatTakeaway.com, in a deal worth $7.3 billion. They're not going to be the biggest delivery company outside of China, and Grubhub holders are going to get 30% of the new combined company. And 3 U.S. lawmakers are asking Zoom Video Communications to clarify their data collection practices after they suspended some user accounts that was demanded by the Chinese government. International events. Trump on Thursday is authorizing U.S. economic and travel sanctions against employees of the International Criminal Court because they're going after, they're investigating, let's say, if the U.S. military committed war crimes in Afghanistan. Trump is saying that they're essentially trying to do something that Putin or Russia wants to do, that they didn't actually commit the act, so he doesn't want to permit it to happen because they didn't do that, he's saying. Or that's at least what they're saying. According to researchers, the economic fallout of the coronavirus might plunge an extra 395 million people into extreme poverty. That's going to swallow a lot of people that are earning just $1.90 a day globally. It's over 1 billion, with a B, billion people. Brazil now has the second largest amount of coronavirus victims. I don't know if I should say victims, but coronavirus cases. They have now over 800,000, just behind the U.S. with about 2 million, and about 30,412 new infections in the last 24 hours. And in Europe, the largest cities in recent days, we've had tens of thousands of protesters in regards to the protests against racism after George Floyd in Minnesota was unjustly murdered by the police. Because obviously it's okay to stay in your home. You know, we all have to stay in our home, but it's okay to protest, right? That's okay to do. So they're expecting a second wave. Some analysts are saying within weeks because of that. And in unusual facts, taking into account the present crisis, the U.S. millennial population is going to experience slower economic growth, which means that once they do enter the workforce, they're going to make less money. They're going to have lower wealth as well, accumulation, and they might delay to buy things like homes and cars due to the fact that they're not going to be able to make as much money as the others, previous generations have. Other than that, a treasure chest full of gold worth $1 million was found in the Rocky Mountains. There's an 89-year-old man now that buried it named Forrest Fenn, and he wrote a poem giving people clues as where to find it, and they finally found it. So somebody actually found the chest worth over $1 million because obviously gold has gone up quite a bit now. And Queen Elizabeth II, age 94, in the UK, took part of her first public video conference call. Mark Cares this week. Right, Cares Week for everybody that's caring for the coronavirus, adding another first for the British monarch in her 68-year reign. That's the news for this week, guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to leave a like in the video.